Are you embarking on your maiden job search, already working in the aviation field, or facing challenges with your current employer? Well, look no further. In this episode, we'll delve into the intricacies of the pilot award, decipher its components, and explore the actions you can take if you encounter issues with your current employment. All that and more coming right up. So strap in and let's get into it.
Standby star 9000, 1013, Kilo 25. Coordinating aileron and rudder, bank, balance, bank pressure rolling to 30 degrees. That's 30 degrees there.
G'day everyone and welcome to episode 88 of the Flight Training Australia podcast. The podcast all about flight training and flying in Australia and beyond. I'm your host Trent Robinson. Thank you for joining me. Well, I have some very exciting news which I've completely forgotten to share with you all. And I have let you know on the social media side of things, but I've just been so much going on, totally forgot to mention it. And that is I have been successful as becoming a finalist in the Australian Aviation Awards for the Aviation Safety Professional of the Year Award in particular, which is just a fantastic honour. So thank you to those that nominated me for the award. And there's 9 finalists in the category, so it's going to be a fairly stiff competition. But I'll be heading over to Sydney for the awards night on the 31st of August and hopefully bring it home with me. Speaking of which, I will be over there for a few days. There may be an opportunity for me to possibly present my Flying in the Top End and Getting Your First Job seminar if anyone is interested to host me. Not that you should need the job part now after listening to these 4 episodes, but I will be there a few days, might be able to work something out. If you're keen to host me, let me know. I know there's a lot of you listening in New South Wales and the Sydney Bankstown area, so have a chat to your school. I'd like it to be not necessarily exclusive to one school, but open to anyone who wants to come. So if you're keen, flick me an email and we'll see if we can make a time that will work out. All right, so episode 88, but essentially part 3 of my Planning Your Career in Aviation series. And today, on this episode, we're going to get into the financial side of things, and that is the Air Pilots Award. What are you going to get paid? It's a sensitive topic for some, I guess. It's difficult to raise in job interviews to just ask, what are you going to get paid? It's also difficult to ask once you already are employed as well. Some companies are really, really good at this and they lay it all out for you. They pay you the award rate or above the award rate, and we'll talk about what that actually means in a minute. Otherwise, you may be on a something like an EBA, but we'll talk about that in a sec as well. So this is information to, really help you just to understand your situation or where you stand and what you're entitled to. And that's essentially what all this is about. I think for some places of work, the concept of the pilot award is seen as almost a dirty word and someone who's trying to cause trouble. And it's not that at all. It's simply everyone has rights, and awards are there for all industry, all different jobs all over the place. There's a particular award that covers your type of work, and that is what you're entitled to. And it's based around the minimum award, minimum pay, the national employment standards, and that sort of thing. So it's really, really important as a pilot or any job in any industry to understand your rights and your pay and conditions that you are entitled to. And as a pilot, we will understand that all forms part of the Air Pilots Award. So there's 3 main documents that I'm going to be researching and referencing, really. I've done the research already, but referencing, and that is the Air Pilots Award of 2020. And that gets a base level award, but is updated in accordance with the Fair Work Act and National Employment Standards. So whenever there's changes that come out, the whole award may not change, but the key parts of the award, like payment, inflation rates, and that sort of stuff, will go up. And we've just had one in July. So 1st of July, there was a 5% increase, and that should have been applied to the pilot award rates, and everyone should have got a pay rise. Some of you would have heard about that. Some of you maybe not. So this is the time to bring that up, but we'll talk about that at the end. All right, so let's look at the award, how it's all laid out, what's included, and naturally, disclaimer, I am not an award industry specialist. I've read it. I understand it for the most part. It is a little bit overwhelming when you first read it, but a couple of rereads and it does actually all sort of make sense. But I'm not a professional, so if you have any issues, problems, then the best thing to do, as always, is to seek professional guidance. And again, we'll talk about that towards the end. So the Pilot Award or the Pilot Employment Award is here to safeguard pilots and educate you about your rights. So it is there as a reference tool and a benchmark for which you should be paid. Now, some companies may go into something called an EBA, which is an employee bargaining agreement. Now, it is highly unlikely you're going to go into an EBA when you're just starting out. All right, it's more for a developed, I don't know what's the word, a company that's, it's more along further down the line. So usually larger operators will do that, and certainly airlines and that sort of thing. There are opportunities, however, for smaller companies to have flexible arrangements and individual arrangements, but there are some pro quos on that, or things you need to consider, and that can all cover everything from arrangements of when your works could be performed, overtime rates, penalty rates, allowances, all that sort of thing. But regardless of anything, any agreement that is made must result in the employee, being you, being better off overall at the time the agreement has been made, all right, than if the agreement had not been made. So you can't be worse off. And that's a good general rule to remember. All right. How can you be employed? Well, you can be employed full-time, part-time, or casual. You cannot be employed as a contractor, not anymore. That's no longer in the award. It's all gone. And the reason why some companies tried to employ you as contractors was so they could get away from paying you superannuation and other entitlements. You must be at the very minimum employed as a casual employee. All right. Now, a part-time employee is an employee who is engaged to perform less than the full-time hours at the workplace on a reasonably predictable basis and entitled on a pro rata basis of the equivalent pay and conditions of a full-time employee. So you may work FTE, like a 3 FTE, which is a 3-day full-time equivalent. You might see that term bouncing around. So you're essentially going to get 3/5 per week of the pay a full-time employee would get and accrue leave at the same sort of ratio. All right. So you're either full-time or part-time. If you're not that, then you're casual. Now, the Fair Work Act, Section 15A, I'll tell you what, if you like air law, you'll love all this stuff because it's all the same people that wrote it, I reckon. But the meaning of a casual employee is an offer of employment is made by the employer to the person is made on the basis that the employer made no firm advance commitment to continuing an indefinite work according to an agreed pattern of work for the person, and the person accepts the offer on that basis and is an employee as a result of that acceptance. Okay, so in plain English, if you're a casual, there's no guaranteed hours, there's no guaranteed work, and there's no guaranteed beginning or end dates. Whereas full-time will typically be a 6 or 12-month contract and benefits and all that sort of stuff that go with it. All right, so you can go into the Fair Work Act. It will go through what the casual employment is. There's also little help info sheets and things online if you want to know more about that, and I can give you that. Now, there is something there that is, if you're more a casual for longer than 12 months, then there is a casual conversion process. I'm not going to go into that because it's getting beyond the scope of what I want to talk about now, but essentially is meaning that you can be, almost the same rights as a full-time and part-time employee with leave and all sorts of other things. Like I said, it's getting beyond the scope of what I want to talk about, and I'll probably say it wrong as well and mislead you. So if you need to know more about that, you can have a look at that all online. And I will have some links in the episode description as always, which you can consult. All right. So what should you be getting paid? Well, let's just work through the award. So reading the pilot award, it does look confusing, and there's all these calculations like 1/800th and add 25% to this and 3% of that. Have a few reads. It's not too bad. Now, formerly, the easiest way was to sit down, open up a spreadsheet, and start plotting it all out bit by bit by bit. And then you can work out what your base rate is and everything else. And I'll be honest, to start this episode, that's exactly what I did. So I set down a typical beginning job for, say, a 172 Joy flights and aerial spotting kind of job, and then a 210 206 style roll, and then a multi-engine IFR. And then because I want to help you guys, I found this really cool tool, and that is called the Pay and Conditions tool, which is a calculator available on the Fair Work Ombudsman website. Now, if you don't know what the ombudsman means, a ombudsman is someone who can go to basically when things can't get sorted out at work, you can report it to the ombudsman, or you might have a problem with the phone company and they're stuffing you around. I know I've had to go to the ombudsman in the past before to sort something out. So it's kind of like a little mini lawyer court case kind of thing where they'll look into everything and make a decision, and then that's the end of that. All right, but on the Fair Work Ombudsman website, the PACT tool is there, and you can actually plot your employment type, and it will compare it against the award and tell you what your hourly rates are, either as a full-time, part-time, or casual. And you can add in all the different allowances that are in the award. It's fantastic. I haven't even seen it before until today. Literally about an hour ago, I stumbled across it. So again, I'll put the link into that, and I'm happy to say that the numbers I put into the calculator were what I got on my spreadsheet. So it does work. All right. Now, I'm going to have a look at some, like I said, some numbers here. I'm going to skip the 172 Joy Flight aerial spotting style roll. That's weights up to aircraft up to 1360 kilos max takeoff weight. So I'm going to go into the 210 206 realm, which is 1360 to 3,359 kilograms single engine. I'm going to keep it fairly simple. There are extra allowances for meals, accommodation things, turboprop, instructor rates, all that sort of stuff. I'm not going to go into all that again, but if you're an instructor, you know I love you because I'm one too. It's very easy to see the base rates and add the bits on. And again, the tool that I just mentioned earlier takes all this into account, so you can have a look at that. But yeah, get your pay slip out, see what you're getting paid per hour, plug in all the details and see how it compares. Now, this is based on the standard 38-hour week. Now, this is a whole topic of its own on what is allowed as far as extra work and that sort of thing goes, and there are mutually agreed efforts and that sort of thing being made. But again, I'm not going to go into that now because it's just getting too far into the legalese, but have a look at the award. Okay, so drum roll, please. For a full-time VFR single-engine pilot, you're going to be earning $53,965 annually, which equates to $27.31 an hour, and that's based on 52 weeks in a year and $38 an hour. All right, and that includes your leave and everything else. So, yeah, that's the base rate, about $54,000. And that's what you can expect for your typically first job. As I said, if you're flying something under 1,360 kilos, it may be slightly less. And again, the base figure is right there in the pilot award. And that comes out to 51,765. So about $2,000 less. All right. So they're the rates. Now, if you're moving into a multi-engine IFR role, even if you're doing IFR single engine or using your instrument rating, obviously you can only do freight and that sort of thing, not passenger stuff. then you add $7,286.91 to your base salary. So if you're flying a typical twin, let's say a Baron, that's going to be up to 3,360 kilograms. You're going to be on a base rate of $60,272. If you're doing IFR on top of that, it would be the $7,286.91, which equates to about $34.19 an hour, or, as I said, the $68,000 base salary. All right. That's without allowances and all the other stuff. So they're all listed there. Things like phone, uniform allowance, all that stuff. There's a whole heap of things there that may be applying to you and the job that you're doing. So you can plug all those into the calculator and it will tell you exactly what you should be getting paid. Now, what about casual? Casual gets a bit more exciting. Like I said, this is where the maths comes in. So if we're going to be a casual rate, then you need to be paid 1/800th of the annual rate. That sounds scary, and you think 1/800th, that sounds like nothing. But the workout is take the base rate. So again, let's go to a 210 typical pilot. If you're employed as a casual, if we take 1/800th of that, we get $67.46. And then we need to add 25% to that, and we get $84.30. Right, so you're meant to be getting paid $84.32 an hour without any other allowances. I'm not saying you shouldn't be getting them, but that's exclusive of that. If there are other allowances there, then you need to look into that. All right, so that will give you a rough idea on the sort of rates you can be getting. Now, if you're an instructor, there are extra rates on top of all that. And this is where I've seen some chats online about what you should be paying for an instructor. If you look at the math, by the time an instructor is paid, then superannuation and insurance and check flights and whatever else and something for the flight school, you're going to be getting close to $170 to $200 an hour. Charging rate, that is, not what the instructor gets paid. So just while we're talking about that, I know it's a bit of a topic of conversation, but and that's based on then the instructor doing a good 500 hours a year minimum. All right. And depending on whether briefings and things are charged for, et cetera, et cetera. Again, there's a few variables. All right. But this is where all these rates and prices come from. So they actually are quite reasonable, although they do seem excessive. It's nothing's getting cheaper out there, people. I can tell you that. All right. Now, what happens if from time to time you may be required to perform a higher duty? This was a question I received, and that was a really great question because this is all covered in the award. So in the award, there's a section there called change of pilot category or classification, and it also covers whether this is temporary or permanent. So essentially what can happen from time to time is an instructor or a pilot may have an instructor rating and may want to be used for check flying and that sort of thing, and their instructor privileges used. Are you entitled to get paid more, A, for that, and B, is that just per hour, or is that for a greater period of time, irrespective of what work is done? Well, like I said, if we have a look in the award, it's all covered there. And basically it says that you should be paid for all duties higher rate, or the applicable higher rate, and benefit from that. The employer is benefiting from it. And so therefore you should be being paid for that for a period of 1 week. So if you were to perform a higher duty for whatever period of time, it could be just one flight, could be 7. All right, you need to be paid at the higher rate for that job requirement for 1 week. Okay. Once you've finished the week, then you'll be paid your normal rate thereafter. Now, what if you're doing this all the time? Again, the award tells you what happens. If you're doing it for more than 90 days in the aggregate in any 12-month period, standing alone, excluding a period spent relieving another pilot on long service leave, the pilot will be paid at a higher rate and benefit for 12 months. So basically, it will become your annual salary. And this is a similar thing I remember when I was starting instructing and I started getting into the multi-engine training. My boss didn't really want me doing multi-engine training unless I had a bunch of students to do, because he had to pay me for the period rather than just for the flight. And this sort of brings an interesting point up, because, again, I was like, well, I'm going to get twin time. I don't mind if you pay me normally. But whilst that's a really nice offer, it is essentially illegal if the employer goes with it, because I am now worse off. And if we remember back in the beginning of the award, I can't be worse off than I would if the agreement was not in place. And because the agreement says I need to be paid more, then I need to be paid more, irrespective of what I think or like to offer. And again, I shouldn't be paid less. I am being employed for my skills. The company is benefiting from those skills, so you deserve to be paid for that. And this is why I'm always saying that we should not be working for free and giving our time away. Companies need us to operate. We need them to be employed. So it's not about stuffing each other around and screwing each other over. It's just be paid what you deserved and charge us out at the rate that you're going to be able to make money and function as a business. That's just how it needs to be. All right. So what else is in the award? Well, here's another one that comes up, and that's something called a bond. Dun, dun, dun. All right. Bonds were previously out of the award and therefore technically not legally binding. So those that had, goodwill and all that sort of thing would agree to bonds, and they would pay them out when they left early. That's basically what it's there for. And this feeds into what I was talking about last episode, where companies are training pilots and people are leaving quicker than expected, whether they expected themselves to find another job or not, or it just sort of came up. Either way, it's burdening a company with a lot of costs. So an employer and a pilot may, by agreement, enter into a training bond whereby the costs of the training, which have been or are to be borne by the employer, may be recovered from the pilot if the pilot ceases to be employed by the employer within a period of time agreed between the pilot and the employer. Okay, I said employer a lot then. I'm starting to get confused myself. All right. So bonds can be applied to things like upgrade training or new aircraft types or classes, but not things like company required check flights. And that would pertain to things like the Part 119 check and training standardization, proficiency flights, all that sort of stuff. Their costs, that's part of doing business, and they're all costs that need to be borne by the operator. But any other upgrade things and stuff, they can either just do it out of the kindness of their heart, or they can enter an agreement with you where if you're happy to continue, so you can't do it under duress, you can basically get a bond. Now, the bond cannot be more than 50% of the total cost. And again, this is something I found interesting because I know plenty of people that did $6,000 worth of training and were bonded for $6,000. So as per the award, you can only be bonded for $3,000, only 50% of the total cost. All right. So something to be mindful of. All right. Rosters. What do we know about rostering? Well, there's a couple of things with rosters, and this has come up with a couple of operations as well, where they are not knowing what they're doing tomorrow. Now, there's two definitions of this. You should know that you're starting at 7 o'clock and you're finishing at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock or whatever it is. What you must know is your 2-week roster 7 days ahead of time. So basically, you should know what you're doing for the next 3 weeks. You can't be getting messed around by, I'll tell you tonight what you're doing tomorrow and if or not you're working. You need to be able to plan your life. Okay, so this is all very clearly laid out in the award. Again, I'm not going to go into a whole heap of it, but You can't be rostered on a day off and then called into work. And if you are, it's got to be by your agreement. You're required to have certain rest periods. And if you do come in on a day off, then you should be getting another day off somewhere else in that month, and a bonus payment of $123.44 for the day worked on top of what you would normally make per your hourly rate. All right, so there are these things that you can't just get stuffed around and chopped and changed and all that sort of thing. It's all in the award. The more you understand the award, the more empowered you can be to protect yourself and those that you work with, and not be mucked around like that, because I know that goes on at a lot of operators, and they basically prey on the fact that you don't understand your rights. Okay, work breaks and things. You shouldn't be working more than 5 hours without a 30-minute break, with a provision that if you're provided with a meal, then you can, or reimburse for a meal. All right, so there's just some of the allowances and penalties and that sort of stuff that apply to what you get paid. There's a heap there. I'm going to put the award on. If you go to you can Google it. Otherwise, go to the AFAP, which is the Australian Federation of Air Pilots website. The link is there as well for the pilot award and the National Employment Standards, which is what all this is tied to and the award is based on. All right. So what happens if you're having issues? Well, step one is you need to know the law. So you need to know the pilot award, you need to understand the pilot award, and then basically follow part 6 of the award, which takes you through the dispute and resolution process. And naturally, the first thing to do is you need to talk to your employer about it, either with the HR first, or again, depends on the size of the company, otherwise the owner. And, you know, if you, as a group of you there, you're probably all in the same boat, so go as a group. Again, not to gang up. You need to do all this very carefully, but to just raise the point. And it could just be a very honest mistake. Sometimes it is. The pilot award does change, and the employer may have just oversighted that, and they're happy to back pay. And then fantastic, all sorted out. If not, you need to show where the issues are and compare it to your pay slip and show how it's all incorrect and wrong. If all of that doesn't work, then you need to either go to the union, and again, that's entirely up to you whether you want to do it, but AFAP provides lawyer services and that sort of stuff, which can hopefully resolve all this. If that's not your thing, or you're not a member, or you don't think that's an option, then the other alternative is you can go to the Fair Work Ombudsman. So Fair Work is there to enforce the award and give you protections as far as but it's to stop you being abused and mistreated as far as employment arrangements go. And it's a process that might not necessarily be pleasant. Unfortunately, some people are just going to stick their heels in and threaten you and this and that and the other. But at the end of the day, that's a choice and decision that you need to make. But as a group, we all need to be empowered and encouraged to stand up for ourselves and be paid as we are entitled to be paid. It is a legal requirement. It's against the law to pay you below the award. Now, some of you may be paid higher than the award, which is fantastic. That's great if you're an employer that appreciates you and pays you above the award. However, that in itself can lead to issues, especially when it comes to things like meal breaks and phone allowances and all this sort of stuff, where you might get some employers that say, oh, we don't need to pay you that because we pay you above the award. Well, if you were to put all those allowances in and it equals the award, well, you're not being paid above the award at all. All right, you're merely being paid the award. So people need to, again, be clear on what their entitlements are. If you're getting paid more than the hourly rates, for example, that I mentioned, that's because you're seen as a valued employee and being paid what you're worth, then that's fantastic. But all the other entitlements still apply on top of that. Okay. All right, guys. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of the ugly world of pilot awards and salaries and things. As things go on, obviously you get more entitlements and pay increases. Most companies are doing the right thing, which is fantastic. And I encourage you to do the right thing by them as well and support each other because, again, like I said, there's no jobs if we don't have companies flying, and they can't do anything if they don't have us as pilots. So get out there, do the right thing, work together, and go and enjoy the career. It doesn't pay great to begin with, absolutely, but hopefully it's not for too long, and then you can certainly get into the better money. And if you want to start getting a bit of an idea of what that might be, well, there's indications in the pilot award. Like I said, you might go into an EBA, but it gives you a bit of an idea of what you might be looking at. All right, so that's it for this episode. That ends part 3. And finally, part 4 next week. I'm going to wrap things up, and we're going to talk about how to go about upskilling either within the company that you're in now or moving on to another employer, or even the next step being airlines or regionals or whatever it is. All right, so we'll talk about that. If you want to give me any more feedback, questions, or anything else regarding this or anything else, you know what to do. All the details are in the episode description. Thank you, everyone who's left some recent podcast reviews. What are they called? Reviews on Apple Podcast. Just some fantastic ones there. The latest one, Elko33, a person who is truly passionate for aviation and wanting new pilots to succeed. We need more Trents in this space. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that one. And Chair Push, I would pay for these podcasts. They are so good. Patreon equals yes. So they are a Patreon member as well. Thank you, Chair Push. And they said, from the first random podcast, I was hooked. Now I can't stop listening. Only about a third of the way through them. So much great information for Australian pilots especially. Amazing how much you forget over the years, but listening to these podcasts is bringing it all back. Great job you're doing. Great job you're doing, Trent. Keep it up. Thank you very much. And to everyone else who's left some episodes. That's all I want for all of you to really benefit from all the information I try and share. I've got some fantastic episodes planned, some more interviews coming up soon. We're going to be talking to Nathan Higgins. A few of you have asked about that. He's off in Oshkosh at the moment, but I'm going to have a chat to him when he gets back later on in August. And I've got a couple more, but I'll keep those a secret for now. All right, guys. I'm back into Mallard type rating mode. I've got some flying coming up next week. So I'll be on day 2 by the time the second episode or the 4th episode comes out. So I'll be recording that one early, I think. So I'll be head down, button up, and then I'll be talking all about what that type rating experience was like, more about the Mallard and Pasbali and flying boats. All right, guys, that's it for now. Take care, and blue skies, remember the golden rule. Aviate, navigate, communicate. Cheers.